So today I'm going to be creating a video that showcases how to solve this two-sum function that I grabbed from LeetCode. The specifications of two-sum, or its input and outputs, are as follows. The input is going to accept two parameters, a nums array, such as this, and a target, which is just an integer. And the output is going to be a two-indexed array that returns the two indexes of the values, if there are any, two values that add up to the target. So in this instance, 2 and 11 adds up to 13. So we're going to return the index of 2, which is 0, and the index of 11, which is 2. And the output should look like this. The justification of this problem is that I need more practice on my algorithms, and the explanation, or the relationship between the inputs and the outputs, is that I basically need to create a function where it checks whether or not 2 and 11 have a relationship that equals 13. But I'm not just checking 2 and 11, I'm checking 2 and 7, 7 and 11, 11 and 15, 2 and 11, 2 and 15, 7 and 11, 7 and 15, etc., etc. So how do we do this? I'm going to go to my next step, which is the visualization. Okay. And I'm going to create some type of object or hash table. I'd imagine we'd first have to iterate through this array. So let me see if I can grab this. So that's going to be my array. And let's break it down and see the relationships between it. The index is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. And the array index, or array index, the value is going to be 2, 7, 11, and 15. So the key here is that we want to see whether or not 2 and any another number here makes up the difference between the relationship between target and the current number, which is basically the difference. So we're going to store our hash table here, and we're going to set the key as the difference between the target minus current number. Okay. So in this case, 13 minus 2 is going to be 11. 13 minus 7 is going to be 6. 13 minus 11 is going to be 2. And 13 minus 15 is going to be negative 2. And all we got to do, the value that we set, because we want to return the index, is just to return the current index that it has, which is going to be I in our for loop. So this is what it's going to look like. And every for loop, we just want to be able to check whether or not the hash and the array index, the current number, exists. So what would that look like? So in the first iteration, we're going to check, probably not. Okay. The first iteration, we're going to check if hash2 exists. We're going to ask the question, does h2 exist? Which, as we know, in the first iteration, the 0th loop, it's not going to, because our hash object is going to look like that. Does it exist? If it doesn't exist, if yes, well, let's start with if no. If no, we're gonna create it. We want to make the hash key, and then we want to do the difference or the target. If it doesn't exist, we're gonna grab the target minus current number, or 2 in this case, equal to the index. So this is going to look like, our hash object is going to look like this then. 11, 0. That's what it's going to look like. And then when we iterate through the next one, it's just going to add 6, 1, 2, 2, and -2 and 3 for every iteration, as you can see here. 11, 0, 6, 1, 2, 2, -2, and 3. So what happens if it does exist? Does H current exist? So we see what happens here. If it doesn't exist, we're just going to add it into our hash object. So if it does exist, if yes, so in this case, we're going to check H here. So it should probably be more clear that array index is going to be the current. So does H current exist? Does H2 exist in here? No. Does H7, okay. Does H2 exist here? No. So add the difference, 11, into the hash table with the value as the index. So it's going to be 11, 0. So when we check for 7, we know that our hash object has 11 as its key and 0 as its value. But when we get to the second one, we check if hash key exists, if hash current exists. So hash 11 here exists, which has this, and its value is 0. So all we got to do, if it exists, is return its value, which is 0 here, and the current index, which is going to give us 0 and 2. So if yes, just return the hash current's value, and then the index. So let's pseudocode that. We're going to have a for loop. Well, first we're going to create a hash object. And then we're going to do a for loop through the nums array. And then we're going to check if hash current exists. If hash current exists, okay, it's better to check if hash current does not exist. Store the difference, which is going to be the target minus the current num as key, and then store the current index as val. Else, if hash current exists, we just want to return a two-dimensional array of the value of hash current and the current index. And if none of that happens, just return an empty array. Okay. So let's go through it one more time, just to make sure we have it all correct. We're going to go to a for loop of 2, 7, 11, and 15 with the target 13. In our first index, we're going to check whether or not hash 2 exists. If it doesn't exist, create this, 11 and 0. The difference, target 13 minus 2, current number 2, 11 as its key, and its current index is 0. Then we're going to check for hash 7, which the only thing that's in our current hash table is that. So it doesn't exist. So create the difference, 13 minus 7, which is 6, as its key, and its value as 1. But when you get to here, we'll notice that hash 11 does exist. And if it exists, grab this hash value, store that as its first index, and then store this as its second index. So we're going to get 0, 2 as our value. All right, so let's code that now. So I'm going to create a hash object. I'm going to do a for loop that loops through the nums array. And all I want to do here is if hash, well, I want to store current, which is going to be nums I. And I want to store the difference, 2, which is equals the target minus current. So I want to check if hash current exists. I want to check if hash current does not exist or is undefined. So if hash current is undefined, what am I going to do? I'm simply going to create my hash table with my difference as its key and store I as its index. Else, if it's there, just return, if this is here, else exists, I want to return hash current, right, hash nums I, and the current index, which is simply I. All right, I think that looks good. Look at the comments. And let's test this. Create the hash object, hash nums I, it's undefined, create the object, else hash current, else if it is defined, return hash current or the value of the index and I. So I'm going to run it. Boom. Got 0 and 2. Let's try a different example. 5, 1, 12, 26, 25. We're going to do 17. Oh wait, no. Let's do 26. That's going to return hopefully 1 and 3, which it does. And then if I do like 99, it's going to return me an empty array. So that is how you do it.